Hello everyone, hope you are doing good. So, our today's topic is learning and memory. If you look at these two terms, learning and memory, we can easily say like they are one and same thing. They appears to be one and same, but there is a subtle difference between the learning and memory, or we can say they are two sides of a coin. Learning is acquiring some new information. You will acquire some new sort of the information, and accordingly that acquisition of the information will bring about change in your behavior, right? Change in your behavior, that is called as, or behavior, or we can say performance, like if it is related to some subject thing and you take the exam, so accordingly your performance will be changed because you have acquired that new information. Now, this acquisition of the information, it will be stored and retained in central nervous system. So, that part, the retention and storage of what is learned is called as memory, that is known as memory. So, we can easily say the learning is like, if we take the example, the recent example of yours, say this thing, like say one sec, like in the COVID era, the corona, before Feb 2020, you weren't aware about the Google Classroom, right? Like if not few of the people, like most of the students, they were not aware about the Google Classroom. So, when the first lecture or first class started on the Google Classroom platform, you opened that platform, then you learned few of the new things, like you acquired the information. Now, you are very well familiar about the Google Classroom, right? So, you have acquired the information. Now, as soon as, like you know, on the Friday there will be the class at 9 a.m., you will log in and open the Google Classroom platform, and immediately you will go to the class section, or if that is the assignment day, you will immediately go over there and open up the assignment. So, because of the learning of this process, that learned thing you have stored unconsciously in certain parts of your central nervous system. You have stored it and retained it. So, automatically by the memory, memorizing this thing, you will automatically operate upon this Google Classroom platform. So, that is the difference between the learning and memory, right? If we go for like say what is the exact definition of the learning? The exact definition of the learning by few of the scientists, it is the ability, we can say it is the ability to acquire new information or new knowledge or skill through either the experience, like you have experienced the thing, right? You have been through those, or through the instruction, like you get instruction from certain person and automatically you acquire that new knowledge or skill. So, that is the proper definition of learning. Now, this learning, it is broadly divided into two types. One is incidental learning and the second is reflexive learning. So, in the incidental learning, like say we can say you learn about the thing, learn about the incidents, like the behavioral change is not immediately apparent, it won't be immediately visible, like say you are say like you are at the age of 20 and your parents, they are in the age of like 40 and 50. So, they most of the times, like all of us has faced, वैसे वो कहते हैं ना कि बेटा हमने ज़िंदगी से सीखा है, राइट? ज़िंदगी में आपने अभी तक ये चीज़ें देखी नहीं है, हमने देखा है, हम सीखे हैं. So, that is the incidental learning. Okay, that is the perfect example of incidental learning, like जो ज़िंदगी हमें सिखा देती है about the world, while like we are different incidents, we face different incidents in our life, and accordingly we acquire some sort of the information, and accordingly we change our behavior, automatically it changes. That is the incidental learning. And reflexive learning is the learning which is associated with immediate behavior change, This is in this incidental learning, the behavior change won't be apparent immediately, but in the case of the reflexive learning it will be immediately apparent. Okay. So, now the incidental learning, it is of, we can divide it into two types further, like one is non-associative learning and second is associative learning. Now, the non-associative learning is the subject will learn about the property of a single stimulus, like a single stimulus. If we take the example of, a loud sound, okay, a loud sound, that is the stimulus. So, that loud sound will be a stimulus. If you hear a loud sound in your surrounding, like now you are listening to this lecture and all of a sudden there is a loud sound, what will be your immediate response? Your immediate response will be, you will get startled, right? Automatically एकदम चौंक जाओगे, right? If that loud sound is repeated again after some time, then you will get accustomed to it, right? Like the loud sound stimulus, the first loud sound stimulus, it startled you, okay, and if that loud sound stimulus is given repeatedly, that startle response will become successively lesser and lesser. That thing is called as habituation. You will get habituated to that particular single stimulus, right? That is non-associative learning, means there is no association with the your behavior with the stimulus to the extra thing. Now, you will, like when we will talk about the associated, then you will get to know what is the association, the single stimulus or the different stimulus. Okay. So, the habituation is one part of the non-associative learning. Now, on the other hand, like just take the example of this thing, say a genuinely, like say that loud, I said the loud sound, okay, that loud sound happened because of some sort of, like say blast, not the blast, some sort of the like celebration occurring in your surrounding, right? In your neighborhood there is a marriage or there is a function and people are celebrating that thing and cracking like the crackers or some sort of the sound, that is known dangerous, okay, known dangerous. If that this loud sound happens to be due to some sort of blast, okay, due to some sort of the blast, or if it is a kind of like gunfire, gunshot loud sound, then it won't be like first time you will hear the gunshot sound in your surrounding, you will get startled, and what will be your immediate response? You will try to save yourself because you know you have learned the thing, this thing. So, on the other hand, when the loud stimulus happens to be dangerous stimulus, genuinely dangerous stimulus, and it then, and if it becomes successively greater with the repeated exposure, like first टाइम आपने अपनी लाइफ में कोई गन शॉट सुना है तो आपको पता ही नहीं है क्या है वो, राइट, देन यू बिकम अवेयर कि ओह ये तो गन शॉट की साउंड है, तो नेक्स्ट टाइम लाइफ में जब भी आप सुनोगे यू विल बिकम मोर अटेंटिव, राइट, योर रिस्पॉन्स टू दैट विल बी मोर एंड मोर. सो दैट रिस्पॉन्स keeps on increasing to a genuinely dangerous stimulus with the successive exposure to that dangerous stimulus. That is called as sensitization, means you become sensitized to a dangerous stimulus and you will respond to that dangerous stimulus, that is called as the sensitization. Okay. Now, the second learning, this is the non-associative. So, there are two types of the non-associative learning. One is the habituation and the second one is sensitization, right, sensitization. Now, coming to the associative learning, what happens in the case of the associative learning? It depends on observing the repeated association between two phenomena, association between two different phenomena. For example, like nowadays it is a rainy season. So, whenever you see the dark clouds, if you are going out of your house and if you see the dark cloud, what will be your response? Because you have been repeatedly exposed to the dark cloud, and most of the times that dark cloud have followed into rain. Okay, rain. So, if you are going out of the house and you see the dark cloud, what you will do? You will take the umbrella. You will take the umbrella along with you. So, because of the repeated exposure of the association of the dark cloud with the rain, you have changed your behavior, and that change in the behavior is carrying the umbrella. Okay, carrying the umbrella, you have learned it. So, because the first time you were exposed to a dark cloud, you were not aware what will happen. You will go out without taking any umbrella and you will get drenched in the rain. So, the next time when you are going out, you see the dark clouds, immediately you will think there might be raining. So, you will carry the umbrella. This thing is called as cause and effect relationship. Cause and effect. What is the cause? Cause is because of the dark cloud, it is going to rain. Okay. Effect, you will carry the umbrella. You will carry the umbrella. Now, there are further examples of studying of the associative learning. It will be conditioning, you will get conditioned or unconditioning, that we will talk about in the coming slides. Okay, in the coming. So, if you look at this slide, what is learning? Learning is ability to acquire new knowledge or skill through instruction or experience, and it is of two types. One is incidental and the second one is reflexive learning. Incidental is because of the different incidents that has happened in your life. Reflexive is there will be the immediate behavior change, that is the main difference, major difference. Now, this incidental learning, it can be non-associative or the associative. Non-associative is when the subject learns about the property of a single stimulus, and associative is learns about the relationship between a stimulus and a behavior, that is the associative learning. Now, coming to the memory part. Memory is, what is memory? Memory was retention and storage, right? Storage of the learned thing, whatever we have learned. So, based on this, we can divide memory into two types. One is declarative or explicit memory, and the second one is non-declarative or the implicit memory. Now, what is the declarative or explicit memory? It means the memory, this memory is associated with the awareness or the consciousness. Either we can say the consciousness or the awareness. You will have to be aware to attain this memory. Okay, this memory, and this declarative or explicit memory, it is dependent on hippocampus. Like hippocampus, what is hippocampus? Hippocampus is medial part of the temporal lobe. Hippocampus and the rest of the medial part of the temporal lobe of the brain, that is needed for the retention of the declarative or the explicit memory. Now, what is this declarative or explicit memory? It is regarding the facts or the events. This declarative memory is regarding the facts or the events. We can say, like, based on these two things, it has been divided into two types. One is semantic or the factual, other one is episodic or the events, like some episode has happened, some sort of the events. So, for the fact or the semantic memory, the requirement of these parts of the brain, the lateral and anterior temporal cortex as well as the prefrontal cortex, they participate in storage and retention of this factual memory. Okay. And hippocampus and medial part of the temporal lobe as well as the neocortex is needed for the storage and retention of episodic memory. Now the example of the episodic or the semantic memory is like the explicit memory, as I said, it is for the factual knowledge. It is for the factual knowledge, facts regarding about the people, about the person or place or anything. So we can say any factual knowledge regarding a particular person or regarding a particular place or regarding a certain thing, that is called as declarative or explicit memory. And out of those factual knowledge, if we talk about the words or the language, some sort of the word, like any word is memorized, any rule, different rules are there, and the language, whatever the language we learn, these kind of the factual knowledge regarding the words, rules and language, that is called as semantic or factual declarative memory, right. Now the episodic memory is regarding any certain event or episode that has happened to your life. Like if you learn to ride a bicycle, okay, initially you need to have the episodic memory. After a certain while, like initially when you learn riding a cycle, you have to have the episodic or the eventual memory. Your this hippocampal and medial part of the temporal lobe has to participate, and after certain time when you learn their thing, that will become the skill, and then that episodic memory of learning to ride a cycle will become implicit memory. The major difference between the declarative and non-declarative memory is declarative memory needs your attention. You have to be aware about certain things. Like say आपने अभी कुछ you have learned certain rules, regulation. Like अब आपका semester exam होगा, then you will write down the answer. So whatever you have learned, you have to write it down, but you have to be aware to retrieve that stored memory in your brain. आपका कोई क्वेश्चन आता है तो ऐसा तो नहीं है ना कि inattentively और without being aware you will automatically start writing the answer. No, you have to be aware, you have to be attentive. So that is the definition of the declarative memory. Those type of the memories, declarative memory, it needs your awareness. And but this non-declarative or implicit memory, it doesn't need any awareness. Once you have learned the thing, you have acquired a certain skill, automatically, जैसे कहते हैं ना ये तो मैं नींद में ही कर दूंगा, that is the implicit memory. Okay. So now this implicit memory, it is of 4 types. One is procedural or skill, like whatever the skill you have acquired. Once you become a surgeon, then automatically you have acquired that skill of performing a certain surgery. That thing is implicit memory. Any habit you acquire throughout your life. Okay. Second is priming and perceptual. Priming and perceptual is like say you need, sometimes we say कि थोड़ा सा बता दे, like if you have to recall a certain word, तो आप कहते हो ना कि just tell me the first letter of that particular word. So you prime yourself. The priming and perceptual, that is the kind of the priming and perceptual memory, or we can say the priming is facilitation of the recognition of certain words or objects by prior exposure to them. By prior exposure to them, like you facilitate of recognizing a certain word by just asking for tell me the first alphabet of that word, then you will automatically recall that word. That is called as the priming. Now the associative and non-associative learning that we discussed in the previous slide, we will discuss in detail in the coming slide, but previous slide we said about the learning. So they are also a type of, they fall under non-declarative or implicit memory. Now the procedural memory, the skill you acquire or the habit you acquire, it needs striatum, cerebellum and motor cortex. Motor cortex, why? To perform the motor activity, to perform any sort of the skill, like you have, like I gave you the example of the performing any surgery. then you have to perform that surgery, you have to do a motor activity. So, for that motor activity, motor cortex and cerebellum is needed, and striatum is for the coordination of that motor activity. And priming and perceptual, it requires, or it is like retained and retrieved because of the neocortex. It needs neocortex, dependent on the neocortex. Now, this associative learning is dependent on amygdala and cerebellum. Amygdala is for the emotional aspect and cerebellum is for the motor performance. Okay. And this non-associative learning like habituation and sensitization, we gave the example of this habituation and sensitization, it does not need any certain area of the brain, but like if you have to perform any kind of thing, like I said, you will get habituated to that startle, like the loud sound, if it is non dangerous, and if it keeps on repeating, initially you will get startled, but after certain time you stop startling, you will start ignoring it. So, that pathway, that reflex pathway is auditory pathway, you hear the sound and then you startle. So, that pathway, particular pathway, it will get less respond to this loud sound, means that neurotransmitter release or the action of the neurotransmitter to the postsynaptic neuron will keep on decreasing. So, reflexive pathway of certain, it will be involved.